If you had asked me 2 years ago what I thought of Rachel, I would have said she saved me. That she was everything I needed when my world was falling apart. The kind of woman who walks in like a calm breeze and somehow makes all the noise in your life quiet down. That's what I used to think. But now? Now I sit in my car outside my parents' house, hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles go white, trying to find the courage to walk through that door and face the lie I've been living for almost 3 years. My name's Daniel, and I'm the kind of guy who used to believe family meant everything. I grew up in a house where my mom ironed napkins and my dad told you what to think before you had a chance to think for yourself. Picture perfect from the outside, cold and calculated once the front door shut. I was the good son. I followed the rules. Got a degree in finance like dad wanted, dated girls my mom approved of. And when I met Rachel at a charity auction mom dragged me to, I thought, finally, I'm doing something for me. She wasn't like the others. She wasn't loud or needy. She was poised, gracious, the kind of woman who made a room feel smaller just by being in it. My mom adored her instantly. I should have known then. Because the truth is, my mom didn't love Rachel, she loved control. And Rachel? She was just fluent in the language of manipulation. The day we got engaged, Mom cried. Said Rachel was exactly the kind of woman who could elevate this family. Elevate. Like I was some project she needed to rescue. The wedding was elegant. Cold. Planned down to the minute, like a military operation. And I remember standing at the altar, watching Rachel walk toward me in that sleek designer dress, and feeling numb. Not nervous. Not excited. Just numb. But I smiled. Of course, I did. That's what I'd been trained to do. I smiled when my brother Sam pulled me aside at the reception, his tie loosened, whiskey on his breath, and muttered, "You sure about this, man? She's not who you think." I smiled when Rachel corrected me again, in front of my friends at dinner a week later, like she was teaching a child how to behave in public. I even smiled when I caught her reading my emails one morning, and she laughed like I was overreacting. "You know how curious I get," she said, tossing her hair over her shoulder like I'd just accused her of stealing a pin. But the smile cracked the day I found the spreadsheet. A literal spreadsheet. Hidden in a folder on her laptop labeled Wedding Budgets. Except this one wasn't about budgets. It was about me. Every dollar I made. Every asset in my name. A log of my inheritance from my grandfather's estate. Details on our joint account, my 401k, even my goddamn car title. And a note at the bottom that read, "Separate accounts once joint account reaches target." Transfer to Cayman? My stomach flipped. I remember blinking at the screen, heart pounding so loud it drowned out the sound of the shower running in the other room. Rachel was singing, off-key, like she hadn't just been caught plotting a silent escape with my entire financial life. I didn't say anything. Not that night. Not for days. Instead, I played along. Because if there's one thing I learned from growing up in a house built on appearances, it's this. You never show your cards too soon. But now? Now I'm sitting in front of the house where it all started. Mom's birthday dinner. The entire family will be inside, Rachel too. Laughing, toasting, playing her part like she always does. And I'm about to walk in and ruin the whole show. Because I made a copy of that spreadsheet. I sent it to Sam. And tonight? Tonight, we're burning the mask to the ground. The dining room was glowing with soft amber lights, the kind my mother insisted made everyone look 5 years younger. Crystal glasses, white linen napkins, and silver cutlery so polished they reflected the fake smiles we all wore. I walked in late on purpose. Let them notice. Let them feel the tension drag in with me like a storm cloud. Rachel looked up from her seat next to my mom, her expression carefully blank, an actress mid-performance. "There you are," she said, her voice honey-sweet and hollow. We were starting to worry. Worry? She hadn't texted me all day. No calls. No, where are you? Nothing. Because she already knew where I'd be. Knew I'd show up and play the doting husband like I always did. I forced a smile and leaned down to kiss her cheek. Her perfume hit me, something expensive and sharp, like cold steel wrapped in roses. My mom clapped her hands once. Perfect timing. We're just about to do the toast. Dad stood, always the commanding presence, wine glass in hand. "To Judith," he began, gesturing to my mom, who tilted her head like a queen awaiting praise. "To a woman who holds this family together." Rachel squeezed my hand under the table, the way she used to in the early days, when everything felt real. But now, her touch was calculated. Measured. I didn't squeeze back. Sam was across the table, watching me. He raised an eyebrow, barely noticeable, but I caught it. "You good?" I nodded once. "Not good." "Ready?" Dinner was civil. Roast lamb, seasonal vegetables, small talk that scratched the surface but never dared go deeper. Rachel kept the conversation going like a pro, laughing at my father's stale jokes, complimenting my mother's necklace. Is that new, Judith? It's gorgeous, and dropping casual mentions of our plans to start house hunting again. House hunting. Like we weren't a ticking bomb disguised as a couple. I watched her talk and realized I didn't recognize her anymore. Or maybe I was finally seeing her clearly. Every word was laced with performance. Charm weaponized. She could disarm a room with a smile and gut you with a whisper. Daniel, my mom's voice cut through my thoughts. Rachel mentioned you've been working late a lot. Everything all right at the firm? Before I could answer, Rachel jumped in. Oh, you know him. Always chasing perfection. There it was. The subtle dig dressed as a compliment. I picked up my glass and took a sip. Actually, I said, eyes on Rachel, I've been working on a few things outside of the firm. Her smile twitched. Barely, but I saw it. Oh, she said, tilting her head. Like what? I didn't answer. Not yet. I wasn't ready to set the room on fire. But I was close. After dessert, Mom's infamous lemon tart that tasted like guilt and powdered sugar, I asked Sam to help me grab something from the car. He didn't hesitate. In the dark, quiet driveway, I handed him the USB. It's all there, I said. Every file, every transfer, even email she sent to her lawyer asking about asset separation. Sam let out a low whistle. Damn, man. She played the long game. Yeah, I muttered. But she underestimated mine. We didn't talk much after that. We didn't need to. My brother wasn't perfect. Hell, he'd made enough mistakes for both of us. But loyalty? That was something he gave freely, once you earned it. And I'd earned it the night I covered for him when he totaled Dad's vintage Mustang after prom. He never forgot that. Back inside, Rachel was waiting by the coat closet, sipping from a glass of red wine. Her smile was tight, her voice low. What's going on, Daniel? I blinked. What do you mean? Don't play stupid. She stepped closer, her heels clicking like accusations against the hardwood. You've been acting off. And I saw you and Sam whispering outside. I let the silence stretch. Then, softly, I said, I know about the spreadsheet, Rachel. Her face didn't change. Not at first. But her fingers tightened around the wine glass just enough for me to notice. You went through my computer? You left it open. Wedding budgets, right? I laughed once, cold. Interesting definition of romance. She didn't deny it. Instead, she lowered her voice further, eyes narrowing. You have no idea what you're doing. No, I said, stepping past her. But you're about to find out I'm not as easy to play as you thought. Her voice followed me like a blade. You'll regret this. I turned back, my hand on the doorframe. You already do. You just don't know it yet. I thought exposing the spreadsheet would be the turning point. I thought showing Rachel I wasn't afraid would knock the mask off, maybe force her to back down, to leave with some dignity. But Rachel didn't retreat. She regrouped. By Monday morning, my phone buzzed with a message from Mom. Can we talk? Privately. I'm worried about you. I stared at the screen, jaw clenched. She'd spoken to Rachel. I knew it before I even called her back. We met at her house, her sanctuary, where every pillow was fluffed and the scent of vanilla candles clung to every corner like guilt. She poured me tea like I was a child again. Like this was some gentle intervention and not an ambush. Daniel, she said, sitting across from me, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Rachel came by yesterday. Of course she did. She told me you've been distant, secretive, that she hesitated, paranoid, that she's worried about you. I let out a short, humorless laugh. Paranoid? Is that what we're calling it now? She showed me emails, Daniel. My mother leaned forward, concern painted across her carefully Botoxed face. Bank transfers, strange searches, notes you've written. She says you're spiraling. I blinked. She showed you what? She thinks you might be having a breakdown. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My mother, my own mother, was quoting Rachel like she was the voice of reason. And Rachel, the same woman who'd been secretly plotting to drain my accounts and disappear to God knows where, had flipped the entire narrative. She wasn't just defending herself. She was erasing me. I stood up slowly, my heart pounding. You believe her? Mom looked wounded. Daniel, I'm trying to understand. She loves you, she said that, again and again. But she's scared. And I think you're not acting like yourself lately. That line, you're not acting like yourself. It was subtle, slippery. The kind of phrase people use before they try to take away your credibility, your autonomy, your voice. I left without another word. drove in silence, parked outside a gas station, and sat there until my hands stopped shaking. Rachel was smart. I'd give her that. She wasn't just playing chess, she was playing it blindfolded and still anticipating every move I hadn't made yet. She knew my family was her biggest weapon. She knew how much it would rattle me to have my own mother question my sanity. And it worked. For a few days, I shut down. I stopped responding to messages. Stopped opening mail. Stopped answering Sam's calls. I didn't want to talk. I didn't want to explain. I just wanted to scream. Because what's worse than being betrayed by someone you trusted? Being disbelieved when you finally speak up. Then came the knock on my apartment door. I didn't answer at first. Just stared at it, heart in my throat. But the knocking didn't stop. Finally, I opened it. And there she was. Rachel. Hair perfect. Makeup subtle but flawless. A small box in her hands, something she probably picked up at a boutique on the way over. Like this was just a casual visit between friends. Can we talk? She asked, her voice soft. No, I said, and moved to close the door. But her hand caught it. You're ruining everything, she said quietly. And I don't mean the marriage. I mean you. Your reputation. Your job. Your family. I stared at her. She smiled gently, as if we were just two lovers in a rough patch, not enemies in a psychological war. I don't want to destroy you, Daniel, she whispered. But if you keep pushing, if you make this messy, I will protect myself. And trust me, I know exactly where to cut. That was the moment I realized something terrifying. Rachel wasn't unhinged. She was calculating. Ruthless. She'd studied me. Understood my weaknesses, my relationships, my needs, and now she was dismantling them piece by piece. Not with fire and fury, but with whispers and polite smiles. She left the box on the doorstep and walked away without looking back. Inside, I opened it. Inside was my watch. The one my grandfather gave me before he died. Rachel must have taken it from my dresser before she moved out last week. There was a note folded underneath it. We both know who you were without me. And so will everyone else, soon enough. That night, I didn't sleep. I paced. I wrote. I made copies of everything: emails, transfers, the spreadsheet, screenshots of messages, audio clips I'd quietly recorded on my phone. I wasn't going down without a fight. She wanted to turn the world against me? Fine. But I'd make sure she didn't know which side of the knife I was coming from. I don't remember sleeping. Not really. The hours between midnight and sunrise blurred together into a series of what-ifs and contingency plans. I sat at my dining table surrounded by papers, screenshots, backup drives. Every keystroke felt like armor. Every file, a bulletproof vest. Rachel had declared war with a smile. I wasn't smiling anymore. By 7 a.m., I sent the email. One click. One document. The spreadsheet, Rachel's wedding budgets file, forwarded to two people, Sam, and someone else who needed to see it. Her boss. See, Rachel worked at a boutique firm downtown, PR and brand image consulting for luxury brands. Her whole career was built on presentation, reputation, trust. I didn't send it anonymously. I didn't hide behind a burner account. I used my full name. Attached a brief note. Dear Mr. Lansing, given the importance of integrity in your line of work, I thought you'd appreciate knowing that one of your lead consultants has been conducting some alternative financial planning. Regards, Daniel W. It wasn't revenge. It was leverage. And it worked. Because by noon, Rachel called me. 3 times. I didn't answer. By 1:15, she showed up at my office. I heard her before I saw her, heels on marble, like gunshots down the hall. My assistant, Erica, poked her head into my office. Rachel's here. I looked up. Tell her I'm in a meeting. Erica blinked. She already walked in. I turned slowly. There she was. Hair pulled back in a tight bun. No makeup. Black turtleneck. Designer coat draped over her arm like armor. This is cute, she said. Sending my personal files to my employer. I leaned back in my chair. They didn't look that personal. Just numbers. Projections. Financial manipulation. Her jaw tightened. You don't understand what you've done. No, I said, folding my hands calmly. You don't understand. You pushed too far. You thought I'd roll over. Smile for the family. Sign the papers. Maybe disappear quietly. But you forgot something. She stared at me. Waiting. I'm not afraid of you anymore. For the first time, she faltered. You think this wins you points? She snapped. You think this makes you look noble? Exposing your own wife. You stopped being my wife the second you started planning your escape. The spreadsheet. The account in the Caymans. The emails. You built a parachute while I was still paying for your seat on the plane. Her eyes flickered. Just for a second. Then she dropped the act. You always needed someone to blame for your own weakness. I laughed. And you always needed someone to manipulate so you didn't have to confront your own. The room went quiet. Finally, she set the coat down gently on the edge of my desk. You've made this messy. And I don't like messy, Daniel. But if you want to drag this into the mud, fine. Just don't cry when it gets on you too. I waited until she left the building before calling Sam. She came to the office. He whistled. Let me guess, threats in a cashmere coat? Basically. Dude, you're poking a bear in heels. She's already been poking back. There was a pause. Then Sam said, So, what's next? That was the question, wasn't it? Because this wasn't just about Rachel anymore. It wasn't just about the spreadsheet, or the fake charm, or her rewriting history to my own mother. It was about me finally breaking the cycle. The one I'd been born into. The one where we smiled through damage and called it grace. Where appearances were everything and truth was too expensive to afford. I looked around my office, photos on the shelves, plaques on the wall, all of it suddenly sterile. Then I pulled up another folder. One labeled, Rachel Audio. See, I started recording conversations the week after I found the spreadsheet. Not because I planned to use them, but because part of me knew she'd try to spin this. Gaslight. Reframe. Weaponize the truth. And I needed receipts. I hit play on one of the more recent clips. Her voice, cold and detached. Honestly, Daniel, I'm just tired of pretending. Of playing house. You're not ambitious. You're convenient. And if I'd known how pathetic you'd turn out, I would have just married your brother. I closed the laptop. My hands didn't shake this time. If she wanted war, she was going to learn what it felt like to lose everything without ever seeing it coming. I didn't burn it down. She just handed me the match. 2 days after Rachel showed up at my office, the fallout began. It started small. A call from a mutual friend, one of those couples we used to double date with, back when pretending was easy and weekends felt like something other than minefields. Hey man, Greg said, his voice low, like he was telling me someone died. Just wanted to check in. Rachel, she's been saying some stuff. What kind of stuff? I asked, already knowing. That you've been unstable. That you've been following her. She even said you tried to freeze her bank account out of spite. I closed my eyes. Of course. She's scared, Dan. That's what she said. And you know, after everything. I just wanted to hear your side. That line. I just wanted to hear your side. It sounds fair. Neutral. Reasonable. But when you're already branded the villain, your side is just a formality. I didn't defend myself. I didn't rant. I didn't even explain. I just said, check your email. And hung up. Because I'd already sent it, another version of the spreadsheet. Along with the voice memo. And a brief message. I don't need you to pick sides. I just need you to stop assuming you already have. That afternoon, Greg texted me one word. Shit. That was the first ripple. By that evening, I'd gotten 4 messages from other friends. People I hadn't spoken to in months, suddenly reaching out, suddenly realizing Rachel's story had too many holes in it. But I wasn't celebrating. I knew Rachel. And Rachel wasn't someone who lost quietly. The next morning, I got a call from my HR department. Daniel, the director began, her voice professional but tight. We received a complaint this morning. From someone claiming you've been emotionally unstable at work, exhibiting signs of aggression, paranoia, and inappropriate behavior. My blood went cold. And who filed the complaint? She hesitated. It was anonymous. But the language used was almost identical to an email we received last week. From someone claiming to be your spouse. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. They knew. I'm not suspended, am I? No, she said quickly. But given the nature of the claim, we have to open a formal review. I'm sorry, Daniel. We just need to cover ourselves. I thanked her, hung up, and stared at the phone for a full minute. She was trying to dismantle me professionally now. Rachel wasn't lashing out. She was strategizing. She knew how important my job was to me. Knew that if she couldn't win in court or at home, she could try to poison everything I'd built outside of it. But here's the thing. Rachel had forgotten who she married. I was raised by a man who could sell a lie and make you thank him for it. Who taught me how to wear a mask without smudging the paint. And for years, I'd used those skills to survive. Now, I was going to use them to win. That night, I hosted a dinner. Small. Just a handful of friends, colleagues. People Rachel had already tried whispering to. I didn't bring up the drama. I didn't mention Rachel at all. I played host like it was 2018 again. Poured wine. Told stories. Laughed when I didn't feel like laughing. Then, just before dessert, I stood. I know things have been messy, I said quietly. I know you've heard things. I just want to say one thing. Thank you. For giving me the benefit of the doubt. It means more than you know. I didn't say I was innocent. I didn't defend myself. I just controlled the tone. And that's the part Rachel never understood. When you control the story, you control the damage. By the end of the week, she was losing ground. Her boss had launched an internal review. Her client list was shrinking. One of her closest allies, her cousin, actually messaged me to say, I don't know what she's doing anymore. She's spiraling. And then, the call I didn't expect. Mom. Her voice was quiet, stripped of judgment. Daniel, I think I owe you an apology. That sentence. It landed harder than anything Rachel had said in weeks. I didn't want to believe it, Mom continued. She said all the right things. She knew how to sound reasonable. But now, I see it. I should have seen it sooner. I didn't say anything. Just let the silence carry all the weight it needed to. She called me again yesterday, Mom said. Told me you were blackmailing her. That you threatened to ruin her career. She ruined her own career, I said. I just stopped covering for it. There was a pause. I know. It wasn't reconciliation. It wasn't healing. But it was a crack in the ice. And sometimes, that's all you need to start a thaw. I got the subpoena on a Tuesday. Folded between bills and a coupon for 20% off pizza was a cream-colored envelope with the firm's logo embossed on the corner. Rachel's firm. Well, formerly her firm. Inside, a summons. Rachel was suing me for emotional distress, alleging that I'd intentionally weaponized private marital information to maliciously sabotage her career and reputation. It was bold. Ballsy, even. The kind of move you make when the house is already burning down and you figure, might as well light the curtains too. I took the paper, walked to my freezer, and pressed it flat against a bottle of vodka I'd been saving for something just like this. I didn't pour a drink. I didn't rage. I called my lawyer. Grace picked up on the second ring. Let me guess. She sued you. Yep. For emotional distress? Bingo. There was a beat of silence. Then, flatly, she's out of her mind. I exhaled. Can she win? No. But she can make it messy. She's not doing this to win. She's doing this to bleed you. Time, money, attention. It's the legal equivalent of a tantrum in a courtroom. She paused, then added, she's hoping you'll fold. That night, I didn't sleep. Again. Not because I was scared, but because I knew Rachel's strategy. She wasn't trying to win in court. She was trying to wear me down. Destroy my job, drain my savings, isolate me from friends, drag my name through the mud, and then watch me flinch. But she didn't understand something vital. I'd already lived with her. There wasn't anything she could do now that was worse than surviving under the same roof for 3 years while pretending it was love. I showed the paperwork to Sam the next morning. His laugh was loud and short, like a gunshot. She really filed that? He asked, flipping through the pages. She really did. She doesn't even look embarrassed, he muttered. She thinks this is power. He looked at me. What do? We don't fight fire with fire, I said. We fight it with facts. Rachel had underestimated one thing, how much she'd already left behind in digital footprints. Grace compiled everything. The spreadsheet, the voice recordings, the emails she sent to her cousin bragging about having Daniel by the balls, even a video security cam footage from the lobby of my office, showing Rachel barging in that day with her coat slung over her arm and fire in her eyes. Let her file, Grace said. Let her drag this into court. We'll respond. Swiftly. Quietly. With receipts. Rachel wanted a spectacle. We gave her silence. We didn't play her game. We dismantled the board. 2 weeks later, the countersuit went through. Defamation. Breach of privacy. False statements made to my employer. It didn't matter if I won that one either. It only mattered that she finally realized I wasn't bluffing. But here's where things took a turn I hadn't seen coming. I got a text from an unknown number. She came to my place. Crying. I think you need to know what she's planning. The number was saved under a name I hadn't seen in months. Alyssa. Rachel's ex. Best friend. Back when we were still engaged, they were inseparable. Brunch every Sunday. Pilates every Thursday. They even called themselves platonic soulmates. Then, one day, poof, Rachel cut her off. Never explained why. Blocked her, deleted her, moved on. Alyssa always said, Rachel doesn't lose people. She just outlives their usefulness. And now, She was resurfacing. We met at a coffee shop on 8th. She wore dark glasses and a trench coat like she was auditioning for a spy movie, but her voice shook when she spoke. She's unraveling, Daniel. I noticed. No, not like before. This is different. She's talking about burning it all down. Your job, your apartment. She said, if I go down, I'm taking him with me. I didn't blink. She kept talking about some file, Alyssa added. Said she has something on you. Something she's been saving. That if you really push, she'll release it. What kind of file? She didn't say. Just called it her insurance. But she sounded off. Like, truly unhinged. That night, I changed every password I had. I called Grace. We put a private investigator on alert. And then, I went into my apartment and looked around at everything I'd built, everything I'd salvaged from the wreckage, and realized something terrifying. Rachel hadn't come to ruin what was left of my life. She came to rewrite the ending, to make herself the victim of a story she authored. And if I didn't play this next part carefully, she'd succeed. For 3 days, I heard nothing from Rachel. No new threats. No legal letters. No drive-by appearances in expensive coats and carefully disheveled hair, which terrified me more than the noise. Rachel didn't do silence. She calculated. She waited. And then she struck. It was Grace who called first. Check your email, she said. No greeting. No tone. I did. There it was. Forwarded from an anonymous account to several people. My employer's general HR inbox. 3 of my firm's board members. A client I'd been negotiating with for months. The subject line was simple. A pattern of psychological abuse. Your employee's hidden truth. Attached? A PDF file. 68 pages. At first glance, it looked clinical. A timeline. A list of alleged incidents. Emotional neglect. Gaslighting. Verbal abuse. All from me. Quotes she fabricated. Text messages she had doctored. Claims that I'd once locked her in a room during a panic attack. That I'd withheld medication. That I'd threatened to ruin her family if she ever left. It read like a memoir of someone else's life. Someone cruel. Someone unrecognizable. But the worst part? She had included real things. Real texts I had sent, plucked from arguments and twisted out of context. Lines like, this is what you do, you manipulate until people stop fighting. Or, I'm not your emotional babysitter. Truthful. Honest. And, in isolation, weaponized. My chest tightened as I read through it. Not because I feared the consequences, but because I finally saw the full shape of the game she was playing. Rachel wasn't trying to win the narrative anymore. She was trying to erase the original one completely. To paint herself as a survivor. To become the hero of the story, my story, that she'd twisted into something unrecognizable. I didn't respond. Not yet. Because I needed to know how she'd done it. The messages, yes, she had access to my phone for years. But the level of detail in the file? The tone? The wording? Someone helped her. And I had to guess who. That night, I called Alyssa. She answered on the second ring. She used it, didn't she? Alyssa said without me asking. She did. She's been talking about that file for months. Said she was building a truth bank, things she could drop if she needed to disappear with sympathy. She calls it the narrative exit strategy. That phrase made my blood run cold. Narrative. Exit. Strategy. She wasn't alone in this, I said. Someone coached her. Helped her write this. It's too precise. Too polished. Alyssa paused. Then, Claire. I sat up. Her therapist? No. Her friend who pretends to be a therapist. She's got no license, no degree, just reads a lot of psychology books and plays Oracle. Rachel talks about her like she's a prophet. I felt the anger rise in my throat. Not because of Claire, but because Rachel had always weaponized intellect. She used language like bullets. And this? This was her war plan. The next day, I met with Grace. We'll respond. In legal terms, she said. But I need to ask you something. Anything. She slid the file across the table. There are elements here that are real. Not the abuse, but the conflict, the distance, the frustration. And I need to know, Daniel, is any of this true? I looked her in the eye, and for a second, I saw what she saw, a man accused of cruelty. A man whose own wife had called him dangerous. A man on the edge. I wasn't perfect, I said slowly. I said things I regret. I lost my patience. I snapped when I should have listened. But I never threatened her. I never abused her. And I sure as hell never locked her in her room. Grace nodded. Good. Because we're going after her. That night, I found something she hadn't meant to leave behind. A black flash drive, tucked in the lining of her old makeup bag, one I'd tossed in a donate box months ago and hadn't touched since. On it, recordings. Her voice. Practicing lines in the mirror. Repeating phrases like, "He's emotionally unstable. He scares me sometimes. I'm not safe." Each clip slightly different. Inflection changes. Breath control. Like an actor preparing for a scene. One file was labeled Final Draft, Victim Statement. I sat there, headphones on, listening to the woman I once called my wife rehearse fear. It was clinical. Mechanical. Cold. She hadn't just decided to burn my life down. She'd rehearsed it. I sent the files to Grace. Then, for the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to feel something other than exhaustion. Rage. Quiet, focused, righteous rage. Because this wasn't a marriage story anymore. It was a trial. And I was ready for cross-examination. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Not in temperature. In presence. You could feel it. The hush, the judgment, the slow, surgical removal of truth from performance. No shouting matches. No dramatic confessions. Just silence. Intention. And facts. Rachel sat across from me at the long table. Designer suit. Minimal makeup. Hair in a sleek knot. She looked like a woman who had it all together. Until you looked at her hands. They kept moving. Clenching, unclenching. Fingertips tapping the edge of her chair like a metronome set to panic. Grace sat beside me, calm, focused, flipping through notes with surgical precision. She didn't waste words. She didn't believe in theater. She believed in evidence. The judge, a woman named Cohen, sharp-eyed and impossible to read, called the hearing to order. This wasn't the final trial. It was a preliminary motion. A chance for both sides to present their case and respond to the cross-claims. Rachel's attorney started first. She laid it out: emotional trauma, career sabotage, public defamation. She feared for her safety, the lawyer said, gesturing to Rachel, who kept her face blank. Her mental health deteriorated under Mr. Whitmore's manipulation. He weaponized their private life against her, causing irreparable harm. I watched Rachel closely. She didn't flinch. Didn't blink. She'd rehearsed this. I waited, patient. Then it was Grace's turn. She stood, walked to the center of the courtroom, and said 4 words that set the tone for everything that followed. "We have the recordings." Rachel's head snapped slightly. She hadn't expected us to use them. Grace turned to the judge. "With permission, Your Honor, we'd like to play an excerpt." One of several audio files discovered on a flash drive belonging to Ms. Whitmore, which we will demonstrate was in her possession prior to her filing the distress claim. The judge nodded once. Grace clicked play. Rachel's voice filled the courtroom speakers. "He scares me sometimes." Pause. "No, that sounded fake. Try again." "He scares me sometimes." There was a pause. The silence was heavier than any outburst could have been. Then another clip. "He threatened to ruin me." "Wait. No, he said I'd regret it." "That's better." "He said I'd regret it." Grace clicked stop. Then she looked at Rachel. And for the first time in months, Rachel looked afraid. Not because she thought she'd be arrested. Not because she thought she'd lose the case. But because control, the only thing she ever truly valued, had just been pried out of her hands and laid bare in front of a courtroom full of witnesses. The judge leaned forward. "Ms. Whitmore, do you deny that this is your voice?" Rachel hesitated, then looked at her lawyer. I don't know what that is. It's clearly edited." Grace raised her hand. "We have the metadata. Timestamped. Unaltered." "Objection," her lawyer snapped, but it was too late. The judge turned to her clerk. "We'll review the files and chambers. But if verified, this casts significant doubt on the validity of your client's claims." Rachel sat back, her shoulders tight, her jaw clenched. And I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired. Like this wasn't a win. Just the absence of another loss. Outside the courthouse, Grace pulled me aside. "You did good," she said. "But she's not done." "I know. She still has people who believe her. Still has allies. This wasn't a kill shot." "It didn't need to be," I said. "Just enough to make the next one count." Because now, every room Rachel walked into would whisper. Every employer, every friend, every contact, they'd wonder what was real, what was rehearsed, what they missed. That night, Rachel called. From a blocked number. I let it go to voicemail. I listened to it, just once, sitting in the dark. Her voice, shaking not with sadness, but rage barely hidden beneath softness. "You're ruining everything, Daniel. And you think it makes you strong. But it just makes you bitter. No one's going to love you after this. No one's going to see past what you've done. I stared at the phone, then deleted the message. She still didn't get it. This wasn't about being loved anymore. It was about finally walking away from a story that was never mine to begin with. It started with a blog post. Just a few paragraphs. No names. No photos. No direct accusations. Just a story. Mine. I wrote it the night after the court hearing. Not out of revenge. Not even for closure. Just because I needed to say it out loud somewhere. To someone, even if that someone was a screen. I talked about the marriage. About the gaslighting. About what it felt like to love someone who treated truth like clay, bendable, moldable, easily discarded. I didn't mention the audio files. I didn't need to. I just told the truth. It went viral in 3 days. Shared on forums, screenshotted on Twitter, reposted on Reddit threads filled with men and women whispering, "This happened to me too." I never said her name, but people knew. The people who needed to. Her old coworkers, former clients, family members who had started distancing themselves the moment they heard the courtroom recording. Even my mother. She called me 2 days after the post went live. "I read it," she said. Her voice was raw. Honest. "I didn't write it for you," I replied. "I know," she said, "but I needed to read it anyway." That was the first time she didn't sound like a woman defending a curated version of our family. She sounded like a mother. Rachel's response came swiftly. A long, windy social media post full of thinly veiled jabs, metaphors, vague language about narcissistic cycles, and survivors reclaiming narratives. But this time, no one applauded. The comments weren't cruel, just quiet. And that was worse for her, because Rachel didn't feed on outrage. She fed on attention. Then came the news I hadn't expected. Her defamation case was dropped. Voluntarily. Her attorney filed a motion to dismiss, without prejudice, citing personal matters outside the scope of litigation. Translation? She was cutting her losses. Backing away before the next hearing could do more damage. Before the rest of the audio files came out. Before the flash drive became part of court record. Grace smirked when she told me. She blinked, she said. She finally blinked. But I didn't smile. Because even now, even after everything, I knew Rachel wasn't done. She never finished a story without a final scene. It came 1 week later. A letter. Handwritten. Folded inside a pale blue envelope. Slid under my apartment door like a quiet ghost. "Daniel, maybe I lost. Maybe you won. Or maybe we both just burned it down and called it justice. You think the world knows who I am now. Maybe they do. But they'll forget. You won't, though. And that's my real victory. I get to live rent-free in your head. Forever. No apology. No remorse. Just ego wrapped in cursive." I stared at the letter. Then lit it on fire over the kitchen sink. Watched the flames eat her final word. She didn't get to live there anymore. A week passed. Then another. And I started breathing differently. Slower. Deeper. Not because everything was fixed, but because it was finally quiet. No subpoenas. No messages. No new accusations, smirks, rumors about the rumors. Just space. And one morning, I walked past the mirror, caught a glimpse of myself, and froze. Not because of how I looked, but because for the first time in a long time, I recognized the man staring back at me. Not the husband. Not the puppet. Not the passive passenger in someone else's story. Just me, Daniel. A man who had finally stopped bleeding for someone else's masterpiece. It was raining the day I saw her again. Not the movie kind of rain, no thunder, no drama. Just a quiet drizzle, soft against the windows of the coffee shop I'd been sitting in for almost an hour, laptop open, pretending to work. I looked up, and there she was. Rachel. Standing across the street, under a black umbrella. Staring straight at me. She looked different. Not ruined. Not humbled. Just older. Heavier, somehow not in body, but in presence. Like the weight of her choices had finally begun to settle in places makeup couldn't reach. I didn't wave. I didn't move. I just watched as she stepped off the curb and crossed toward me. She walked in like she owned the place. She always had that ability, turning space into stage. But this time, her spotlight was dimmer. Her heels didn't click. Her smile didn't rise. She slid into the seat across from me. "I'm not here to fight," she said. "I didn't think you were." We sat in silence for a beat. Then she leaned back and looked at me, not with fire, not with spite, just quiet calculation. "You destroyed me," she said. "No," I replied, calm. "You destroyed me. I just stopped hiding the wreckage." She exhaled. No anger. No denial. I thought I could control the story, she said. I always could. With other people. I'm not other people. No, she whispered. You never were. That's what made you dangerous. That hung in the air between us, like fog refusing to lift. She looked out the window for a moment, then turned back to me. I lost everything. I shrugged. You lost what you built on lies. Another pause. Longer this time. I read your post, she said quietly. The one that went viral. Good. I hated how much of it was true. I didn't respond. Because that was her version of an apology, and I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of forgiveness. She stood up slowly, her fingers brushing the edge of the table. Then she looked at me and said the last thing I ever expected. You were right. That was it. No grand confession. No tears. No monologue. Just those 3 words. And then she walked out. No umbrella this time. She let the rain fall. Maybe she thought it made her look tragic. Maybe she wanted to be seen. But I didn't watch her go. I turned back to my laptop, closed the screen, and smiled. Not because I'd won, but because I didn't care anymore. She wasn't the story anymore. I was. And for the first time, that story felt clean. Months later, I moved out of the apartment. New place. Different city. Smaller space. But it didn't feel like less, it felt like freedom. I started writing again. Really writing. Not just about Rachel. Not about revenge. About rebuilding. About letting go. About how healing isn't loud, it's quiet. It's in the mornings where you forget to think about them. It's in the conversations that don't include their name. It's in the moment you stop telling people what happened because it no longer defines you. That's where I live now. In the silence after the storm. Not because I escaped your story, but because I finally started my own. And for the first time in years, I feel like I'm home. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories. And before you go, check out the video on your screen. It's another heartfelt story you won't want to miss.